The Cellar. For most, a trip to Florida is an ideal spot to travel for a vacation in the sun. One of the many attractions that people love to visit is Icon Park. Icon Park is an entertainment complex located in Orlando, Florida. The complex sits on 20 acres of land and has more than 50 rides and attractions. One of the most popular attractions at Icon Park opened on December 28th of 2021. The Orlando Freefall ride was marketed as the world's tallest freestanding drop tower, reaching a height of 430 feet tall. This is 15 feet above the previous tallest drop tower, Zumanjaro Drop of Doom, which is located at Six Flags Great Adventure. The ride wouldn't last long though, as its last run would end in disaster on March 25th of 2022. Let's dive into that story. Tyre Sampson was born August 17, 2007. He grew up in Missouri, and at 14 years of age, his large size and stature made him an ideal football player. Tyre was 6 foot 5 inches tall and weighed roughly 380 pounds. I have to imagine he was an absolute force on the football field. But Tyre wasn't just a talent on the gridiron. He was an extremely smart student in school, and he loved to learn. He was described as being a bit of a gentle giant who was extremely kind to all of his peers. That now brings us to March 25th, 2022. Tyre was visiting family and friends in Florida, and they collectively made the decision to venture to Icon Park for a day of fun in the sun. As the group began selecting rides to go on, Tyre would start to run into some issues. It's not clear how many rides, but there were at least a handful that could not accommodate Tyre's overall size and weight. This disappointed Tyre, but each time he was turned away, he would simply shift his attention to a different ride that may be more well-suited for him. After spending most of the day at the park, the group decided they would go on one last ride before leaving. Tyre was excited to finally get to go on the park's acclaimed Orlando Freefall ride. As the group boarded the ride, it would become immediately apparent that something was wrong. Tyre noticed that his harness did not seem to lock into place correctly, as his overall size and stature was too much for the seats to properly accommodate. Before anything could be done, the ride was in motion. All seemed to go well at first, until around 10 minutes into the ride. Tyre had felt uncomfortable with his harness the entire time the ride had been ongoing. As the ride proceeded to make its final 400-foot plummet, reaching speeds of around 75 miles per hour, Tyre would turn to those around him and tell them, "I don't know, man. If I don't make it down safely, can you please tell my mama and daddy that I love them?" The ride would proceed to free fall straight down. As it neared the end of its drop, the ride would begin braking, and that's when absolute tragedy would strike. Tyre would slip straight under and out of his harness and plummet down to the ground below. Those around could be heard screaming to stop the ride. As Tyre laid motionless, emergency services were called, and I will play you a clip of the 911 call now.
Alright, tell me exactly what happened.
The thing went down the drop, and when it got closer to the bottom, when it hit the brakes, the guy fell right out of the seat. And
okay. Alright, so we have help on...
I seen him hit the ground.
Okay, so he fell out of the thing onto the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, are you with him now?
No, there's a whole crowd around him right now.
Okay. And was he the only one that
Yeah,
fell
he's
out?
the only one that fell, but there was 4 people on the ride.
Okay. Alright, so we have help on the way. It looks like we're getting multiple calls.
By the time emergency services arrived, Tyre Sampson was dead. Following his death, an investigation into what went wrong was immediate. The first glaring piece of evidence was the ride's weight limit, which was 286 pounds, So why in the world was a boy that was 6'5" and pushing 380 pounds allowed onto the ride? Another glaring issue with the ride was the lack of any kind of extra safety features. Typically, a free fall ride of this nature would have some form of a seatbelt in place in case the harness malfunctioned. This ride had no such seatbelt. Further evidence would eventually be released to the public, as it was found that adjustments had been made to the ride's harness for heavier riders like Tyre. While researching this story, I found a quote in an article that really dives into this. It says the following: "Manual adjustments had been made to the sensor for the seat in question that allowed the harness to restraint opening to be almost double that of the normal restraint opening range. These misadjustments allowed the safety lights to illuminate improperly, satisfying the ride's electronic safety mechanism that allowed the ride to operate." Following the tragedy, the park claimed that it was the employees working the ride's fault for what had transpired. But with all the evidence that has come to light, it seems pretty clear that fault lies in the hands of all those involved with this ride at the park. The seat should have never been tampered with, and the employees working these rides are typically teenagers who are not overly trained. For those working, they did what they most likely were trained to do: place the bigger rider in the adjusted seat, make sure the safety lights clear the ride, and begin the ride. Following Tyre's passing, his family would file a lawsuit, which was eventually settled for an undisclosed amount. Tyre's mother has also been a vocal advocate for further safety regulations within parks in Florida. She has been pushing for these new laws to pass, and I'm hopeful she will be able to get this accomplished. Tyre's death was 100% avoidable. If they had not tampered with the ride, or at the very least had equipped the ride with seatbelts, then Tyre would still be here. One final piece of information I wanted to touch on is that of the ride itself. Tyre's mother was very vocal about the park not reopening the ride. For many, it seemed like a long shot, as a $1 million ride doesn't typically shut down for good. But ultimately, the park would do what was right, as they announced they would not reopen the ride, and in March of 2023, the ride would begin getting dismantled. At the end of the day, nothing can bring back this young man that had so much life ahead of him. My condolences go out to all the friends and family members of Tyre Sampson. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, you can check the description box below and find the link to my merch store. Tons of awesome designs, and the proceeds help fund the channel. For those of you that are interested, I have a Cellar Dwellers membership tier for the channel. It's $2.99 a month and comes with some pretty cool perks, so if that interests you, then please go check it out. I also have that linked in the description box below. If you'd like to submit a real-life scary story that you would like featured on an episode on the channel, please do so using the email or the Reddit link linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, the writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything you do to support the channel is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.